Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's been a couple of days, a week or so since I've been on here. I've been working on my roof. If you saw my last video, you probably saw the light streaming in from the holes in the roof. And it's mostly done. It held out the rain last night. We had a pretty big storm that came in and it rained a ton and looks like everything's fine, so yay me. There will still be light coming in from above because while I was fixing the roof, I installed some skylights. That's good. The house tends to be a bit dark, and that would hopefully correct some of that. So today I'm taking a break. It was supposed to be really stormy today, but it's a sunny day, so I don't know. I may have to take a break outside. How's that sound? To the topic. Oh, a couple of topics. My book has been published. I've read chapters from it on here before. It was 100 Days, an End of Civilization novel. I'm talking about civilization today. Topics that didn't make it into the book. And during this discussion, maybe I'll even mention why they didn't make it into the book. Right. So anyway, link in the description if you want to take a look at the book on Amazon. So today's topic, so many ways to fail. I was in a live stream recently. Actually, I was working on the roof, and I jumped on a live stream and was able to multitask and had some discussions with people, and they know me there, and they know that I'm concerned about global heating and the end of civilization. And during the discussion, the topic came up of AI, and we were talking about AI. And it's a topic I've given quite a bit of thought to. And someone asked me, "Oh, okay, great. If you've been thinking about this, which do you think?" And I can't remember the exact question. It kind of doesn't matter because they all sort of head in the same direction. So I'll give you my version of the question here. So which do you think will destroy humanity first? Global heating or AI disruption of civilization and human life? AI advancements, if you prefer. And I kind of walked around the question a little bit. I can't remember my exact answer. There's a couple of answers you could give to that. You could take the approach of, well, AI advancements are kind of unknown. There could be good side, a bad side. Maybe it balances out. Maybe net of net, we're no worse off than we are now. Whereas global heating is always bad, right? Global heating is physics. There's no negotiating with physics. There's no controlling it. There's no forestalling it. You can always forestall the release of a technology or the advancement of a technology. I mean, it's difficult, obviously. We didn't do that with nuclear weapons, for example. But in theory, you could because, it's humans. We're doing it. We built the atomic bomb. If we hadn't built the atomic bomb, then we might not have atomic bombs today. Or maybe we would anyway, and it would have taken 10 years longer. Who knows? But at least the ball is in our court, right? It goes or it doesn't go according to our desires, at least collectively. And the reason we probably would have had nuclear weapons anyway is because the science of the atom was well known. And in fact, before the Second World War, people were thinking about atomic physics rather a lot. And so by the time Einstein was able to approach Franklin Roosevelt and say, look, there's kind of a bomb here if we want to go this direction, they had been having the bomb talk or the possibility of a bomb for a long time. So probably we would have gotten atomic weapons anyway. I'm just belaboring a point because this is the point of dealing with AI. Maybe we could control it. Maybe we could hold it back. Probably not. Maybe we could buy ourselves some time. Probably not much time if we tried, and so on. So, but it's in our wheelhouse because we're developing this thing. We could just stop. We could. I mean, in theory. But global heating, you can't stop that. Ah, yes, you could. You could stop that by just stop burning fossil fuels. And then this is where the question comes in. So which is going to unseat us first? Is it going to be the impacts of global heating that are going to undermine civilization and human life? Or is it going to be AI that destroys our means of participation in the global economy? So let me go over these 2 points quickly, and then I'll tell you what I think actually happens. How does global heating destroy civilization? How does AI advancements destroy civilization? Let's start with global heating. The way that global heating destroys civilization is that we exist on Earth physically. We have planted ourselves physically in places that support human life, just breathing, okay? Eating, drinking, and breathing, reproducing. That support human life and human activities that also support human life, like activities like agriculture, okay, industry, home building, should we call it, homes, habitat for people. So we have plopped ourselves on the earth in the places that support these activities for humans. And you go back in history, human history, and what do you find? You find the ancient civilizations, right? They were establishing themselves, well, not all over the world. The ancient civilizations established themselves in particular places. So where was Mesopotamia? Well, Mesopotamia means, in Greek, between the rivers. And what were the rivers? Most adults know this now, right? The Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. So the Mesopotamians established themselves near the rivers. What about the Egyptians? Well, they were on the Nile, and there was more than one kingdom. There was an upper kingdom and a lower kingdom. They were both on the Nile. Look at all the great cities in Europe. They're all on rivers. Some of them, like Paris, was on an island in the middle of a river. I don't even know if the island still exists, right? It could all be so developed now that it's completely gone. But, these things, there are patterns to where we put ourselves. We put ourselves on rivers. We put ourselves in where there's arable land. Maybe there's marshes and swamps around, but there's water and land that can support crops. We put ourselves in defensible positions. We put ourselves on near the sea, because the sea is a source of protein. Also, back in the day, the only way you really got around, if you weren't walking, was on ships. So for a long time, 5,000 years, if you had a major city or you had a major city-state, it was on a suitable port on the coast. Maybe there was even a river that came down. I'm trying to make a point here that the places that people are now is not random. And there's a pattern. And all humans have basically followed the same pattern, where there are major city-states, major numbers of people currently. That was advantageous sometime in the past because of access to fresh water, access to ocean ports, access to arable land. And now we've come to this, a temperate climate. We don't do really well in extremely hot areas, humans. We do reasonably well, but you're not going to find, just look at the map. You're not going to find your major civilizations in areas that are really hot. And in places that became very hot and often very dry, the civilizations that were there, like, for my example, Mesopotamia, they're gone. So even though it was working for a while, and they were an early example of a major civilizational footprint, it couldn't last because something happened to the climate. The same thing has happened all around the world. Here in the U.S., we had, the Anasazi Indians, the Pueblo Indians. They vanished. We had a massive civilization. We don't know where they went. other Native Americans in the region have ideas about that, but we just don't know. They had this massive buildup and then they were gone. Probably climactic, but we'll never know. So we tend to live in areas that are not too hot, not too dry, not too cold, not too stormy, not too wet. And we have a fairly narrow window of conditions. And humans have now basically filled the earth. There's 8,000 million of us. That's the same as 8 billion. There's 8,000 million of us now in the earth. And we have basically covered the earth. This is what we're doing. And we can't cover any more of the earth, really, than we've already covered. Unless we start building really high or digging down really deep or putting people in orbit. We just can't do too much more than 8,000 million people. And the problem with global heating is that it is now going to render some of these habitat where humans have been established, sometimes for a long time, it's going to render them suboptimal for human occupation. They were fine 10,000 years ago. They were fine 5,000 years ago. They were okay still 1,000 years ago. But going forward, some of these places are not going to be habitable. And there have been a lot of people talking about this. I'm not the only one. Uninhabitable Earth. And it's a doom trope, right? Uninhabitable Earth, people are going to die. Woe is me, all this kind of stuff. But I'm speaking strictly as a scientist now. That it is a contingent fact of history that we have colonized the Earth where it is comfortable for us to do so. And then, using technology, fossil fuels, clothing, shelters, transportation, we've expanded human habitation into really marginal places. So, we just had a big typhoon hit Alaska. A typhoon, which is like a tropical storm, right? Go figure. We just had a typhoon hit Alaska. And all these people were disturbed. And then they show all the boats that were thrown up on the beach and all the houses that were washed out to sea. Well, all of that development happened in the last 100 years. 100 years ago, there would have been none of that there. There would have been no houses, no boats, no cars, no roads, no nothing. All of that was made possible by technology. Who would be in Alaska? Inuit. Native Americans. Native Alaskans, you should call them Native Alaskans. Native Alaskans. And what were they doing? They were making their own skin canoes, and they were going out with harpoons made out of ivory, and they were, killing the whales and dragging them back to the shore and eating the whales and eating the seals. And, 100,000 people? Probably less. 20,000 people, 30,000 people lived in Alaska 100, 150, 200 years ago. And now there's millions of people. And they've got boats and planes and helicopters and houses on the shore and the beach and the whole thing. And, so now all of that is made possible with technology. We have allowed ourselves, enabled ourselves to expand out into these territories that used to be couldn't support an abundance of human life. They just didn't. Global climate change, aka global heating, is going to render a lot of these places, the hot places where we now live in air-conditioned buildings, right? The artificial irrigation, that when now we have croplands in places that couldn't grow crops because there wasn't a river and there wasn't a water supply. All these marginal places which we have pushed into using technology, and all that technology is based on fossil fuels, they are going to become marginal again because it's going to get hot. And again, using the Alaska example, you might think, well, Alaska, them getting hot, that's going to be fine. They're nothing but ice, but if it gets a little bit warmer, some of the ice will melt. More people can live there. We'll all move from Los Angeles to Juneau, Alaska, or Fairbanks, or someplace like that, and we'll just set up shop, and we'll have lattes and amusement parks and everything else because it got warm. But that probably isn't going to work. They just had a major tropical storm called the typhoon in the Pacific Ocean, okay? A typhoon. They had a major tropical storm come ashore and beat them to pieces. And the people who live up there will tell you that the reason why it beat them to pieces is because there was no ice. Normally, these people build their houses on the beach. And these aren't sandy beaches, these are rock gravel beaches. They build their houses down on the beach so they can get in and out of their boat easily. And when the storms come, this is even early in the year for them probably, but later in the winter the storms will come. But by the time the storms come, there's a huge raft of ice that's been built up on the shore where the beach is. And the ice protects their homes and the beach from the wave action of the big storms that come in. All right, all winter. So they don't have anything to worry about. Well, the problem right now for them was they just discovered that this huge typhoon came in. There was no ice. But later in the winter, there will still be no ice. This is a big problem for them. They're going to have to move inland. So living on the beach, some of the houses now, this is, you have to look this up. And I saw a documentary on this. Some of their houses now, they rebuilt them with skids underneath. They're not on a foundation. They're on skids so that they can take a big tractor and a winch and they can drag the house up the beach to a higher place as the beach is eroding so their house doesn't go into the ocean. This is their life now. So it's going to be really difficult for them to survive under this regime of global heating. Everything that worked for them doesn't work anymore. The ice isn't there. The animals aren't there. You know, all the seasons are completely turned upside down. And all of their indigenous ways of life that used to work for the seasons and the coming and going of the animals and the animals that lived in the areas because of the ice and the hunting and everything else, it's all gone, or it's going. And now they have boats and trucks and all this artificial equipment. So is global heating going to be great for them? Probably not. It's already showing its teeth. It's already showing that their way of life and their way of doing things is not going forward. They're going to have to come up with new things. And putting skids under their houses was one of the things. What comes after that? I don't know. How are these people going to survive up there? Don't know. And then, if we stop using fossil fuels, then all of these marginal habitats, like farms in the desert, serviced by irrigation and air conditioning, and people in Alaska surviving on fossil fuels and artificial heating and electricity, right? If we stop burning fossil fuels, then a lot of this stuff starts to break down. And pretty soon, you don't have air conditioning, or not as much of it as you really need, and you don't have irrigation because there's not enough electricity, possibly, for all of your pumps and all this stuff has to be manufactured. And so as you stop using fossil fuels, or you can't use fossil fuels, then the manufacturing base for making boats and cars and trucks and trains and airplanes and snowmobiles and outboard motors for your boat, all this stuff starts to collapse. So while you can survive in Alaska with electricity and diesel and an outboard motor for your boat, when those things become either really expensive or really hard to get because we're cutting back on fossil fuel consumption, then you're done for. You're done. And you know, our current life is 100% dependent on fossil fuels, but fossil fuels is making this planet with increasing rapidity uninhabitable. We're already seeing places that are looking like they're going to be uninhabitable. If trends continue, they're going to be uninhabitable. And this is even happening in the good old US of A. The lower third of Florida state is going to be underwater. And I don't mean 200 years from now. I mean like 20, 30 years from now. People that are building homes right now and getting a 30-year mortgage may have to abandon their homes even before they pay off the mortgage. And so for long-term planning, the habitability of these areas is now critical. The insurance industries all around the world, and of course we're mostly talking about North America, Europe, China, parts of Africa, the insurance industries all around the world are looking very carefully at what they're willing to insure, because they don't want to insure things that they're going to lose money on because they're a business. So they're backing away from certain types of policies. And this is happening everywhere. It's right here in California. Right here in California, it's hard to get homeowners insurance or even any kind of insurance, auto insurance in certain areas that are becoming too dangerous to live in. There are fires that are burning through communities. Will the insurance companies pay out on those policies and just rebuild right back where they were? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe they'll have contingencies. Yeah, sure, we'll pay you for this home, but you can't build here. We're not going to issue a policy on this home if you build here. You can take your money and build somewhere else, but you can't build here. How are people going to feel about that? That area is now uninhabitable, according to the insurance industry. You can't build there. What can you do there? I don't know, public park. If it burns, we don't really care. Global heating has the capacity to unmake our world, to unmake our human world, just by screwing everything up. And if we discover that a lot of the places where we currently have large populations of people are uninhabitable, where are those people going to go? That's the question. Some research says most of them won't go anywhere. They will, in fact, perish in place because they don't have the money, they don't have an invitation to go to another country. They're not rich enough to start over again someplace else, and it's just not tenable. Escaping is just not a thing for them. Okay, so how do people feel about that? Well, right now, people don't feel about it at all. There's absolutely zero discussion. Zero. There is no discussion about what we're going to do with people who are currently living in areas that are almost certainly going to become uninhabitable. There is no discussion of that. Zero. Maybe within those countries and within those cities and those regions, they might be talking about it, but I doubt it. I doubt very much that anybody is talking about this. This is too politically explosive. You know, if you're a president of a country in Africa or a country in Asia, and you're or the South Pacific, of course, and you're worried that your people are living in an area that soon, eventually, maybe just eventually, not even when, just eventually will become uninhabitable. Are you even going to tell them? No, you won't. You just won't. You just So we're doomed? When are we doomed? 30 years? Well, I won't be in office anymore. Hell, I probably won't even be alive. So I can't save these people. I can't fix their problem, and I won't be around when it is a problem. So they don't bring it up. Why make their life difficult? And right here, the President of the United States, right here in the good old US of A. Yep, he says it's a hoax. He doesn't want to deal with it. Right here in the good old US of A, it's a hoax. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about it. He'll throw you in prison. In some areas of this country, it's already illegal to use words like climate change in legislation. Can you believe that? Believe it. When will global heating destroy us? That's difficult to say. When will it begin the process of destroying it? Last year. We're already in the process funnel. There's no escaping this. We are now at 430 some odd parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, up from about 200, right? Pre-industrial. We're now at like 430. We've basically doubled the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. We're fucked. Oh yeah, we're done. We're cooked. We're cooked, people. Okay, that's it. You're done. I don't care where you live, where you work, what your color your skin is, what you believe about religions or economics or anything else. You're done. You're cooked. When are you cooked? I don't know. But right now, you are in the process of going down. Deal with that however you want to, or don't deal with it at all. I don't care. I don't know when our civilization collapses. I know how. And from that, each of us can start to infer when that date is. I don't think it's much past the year 2030. A few years from now, maybe 5, but not much further out than 5 years. Because the way that we collapse, and I'm getting back to the topic, okay? Because I had to do some context for you. The way we fail under global heating, before I get to AI, trying to keep myself organized here. The way we fail under global heating is that the heat itself, just by itself, as a phenomenon like gravity, the heat itself makes continuous, productive human life in certain regions impossible. This is already happening. That's why I said last week was the beginning of the end. Because it's somewhere in the past. Maybe it was even 20 years ago this began falling apart. Where organized human life becomes, as we know it, becomes untenable. Is there another type of organized human life that we can adopt in the next few years that is more tenable? Yeah, maybe. But you're going to have to do it without fossil fuels. Because you won't have them. We're going to have to stop burning fossil fuels. That's it. I don't know who's going to make that decision or when or even if, but you're going to run out of fossil fuels. That's it. It has to happen, people. It just has to happen. And without fossil fuels available to you and I and everybody else, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump and everybody, then without fossil fuels available cheaply and constantly, there's no driving, there's no flying, there's no movement of goods, there's no movement of money, right? And there's no jobs. That's it. It's done. You just think about your life. And what happens if the surface stations are empty of fuels? Or they've only got fuels once a week. And then there's rationing, and you can't get the fuels you want to when you need them. And well, then you can't get to your job, at least not reliably, and maybe try working from home. But then turns out the truck driver can't get to the store to put the food on the shelves. And also it turns out the farmers are having trouble bringing in the harvest and transporting and processing the foods and transporting the foods. And then pretty soon there's water shortages because, the maintenance people can't get out and work on the water lines when they break. And so on. And it's just every kind of thing that you rely on personally, plus everybody else around you, just doesn't happen. Because of the lack of availability 24/7 of the thing that we need for every single thing that we do, which is fossil fuels. We need fossil fuels. Coal, oil, and natural gas, but oil in particular, crude oil in particular, to do 100% of everything we do 100% of the time. Every thought you think, everything you eat, everything you drink, everything, of the clothes you wear, the home you live in, the electricity, the water, the sewer treatment, the food on the shelves at the store, all of that, and so much more. I could sit here for 10 solid minutes and list things that are 100% dependent on fossil fuels. And the only thing that isn't, so I can name a couple of things that aren't, and these are the only things that aren't, is a tomato plant growing in your backyard in a pot. Except that you water that tomato plant with water from your tap. So yeah, maybe not. It's just hard to imagine something that isn't reliant on 100% availability of fossil fuels 100% of the time for everything. So yeah, that's how our civilization collapses. Either the global heating blows us to rat shit and we just can't do it anymore, or we stop burning fossil fuels because of global heating. And then without the fossil fuels, we can't do anything anymore. It's done either way. Either way. And I call the prior example where the heating makes what we have to do impossible as a uncontrolled demolition. Like when they demolish a building, the building comes down. There's a way to do that that's uncontrolled. Okay, and the building falls over, it takes out other buildings, it makes a mess. Or in the case where we decide to stop burning fossil fuels, that could be a controlled demolition. But either way, the word demolition is there, right? Either we have a controlled demolition where we decide to do this deliberately, or we have an uncontrolled demolition where it is done to us. You're going to get a demolition either way. And then you're done. But 3 years, maybe 5. It's right there, people. We are right there. We are already in the funnel. We are headed for this disaster. because of physics. There's no escape. Now to AI. Artificial intelligence, some people think it's a hoax. Some people think it's a bubble. Some people think it's a hype. It's just, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Zuckerberg, yanking our chain, right? They're going to come up with a new gigaw, and we're going to love the gigaw. We're all going to pay a subscription to get Chat GPT, right, to do our homework for us. And that's about the worst it'll be is kids are cheating on their homework and their tests, and it's a societal problem, but it's not the end of the world. And there's another bunch of other people who are actually deeply involved in that industry who are coming back and saying, oh yeah, you people are cooked. You're cooked. Maybe 3 years, maybe 5, you're cooked. What does that sound like? Doesn't that sound like what I was saying about over here with the climate change and the global heating, right? 3 years, maybe 5, you're cooked. You're cooked either way. And there's a whole bunch of industry leaders on the artificial intelligence side that are now coming out and saying, oh, we're cooked. We're cooked. There's no way to stop this. And all the directions it goes, whether we control it or it's out of control, it ends up in the same place. Either we get a controlled demolition or an uncontrolled demolition of human life as we know it because of artificial intelligence. 3, maybe 5 years. There have been papers released. I think it was called AI 2027. And before that, it was Aschenbrenner's situational awareness paper. These are coming from industry leaders. These are the people who envisioned this stuff from way back in the day and pushed it hard, pushed it forward, worked with all these startups, worked with all these entrepreneurs, and then they just backed the fuck away. They're like, oh, hold on, this is not a game anymore. What are we doing? Back up. And they are backing up and they are saying, this is bad. This cannot work. I mean, it will work, and that's the problem. It is working now, and it's going to destroy us. Well, how does it do that? Hollywood tells you it's the T-800, right? It's the Terminator franchise. That we build machines, Skynet becomes sentient, whatever. We build machines that can carry AR-15s and mow us all down on the battlefield. And okay, why would they even do that? But it makes great Hollywood, okay? That's not how this happens. You can actually find people on the internet right now who say that's exactly what's going to happen. That we're going to combine artificial intelligence with robotics. So this is the Terminator franchise, right? This is Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can combine artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, with robots and get the Terminator, just like in the movie. And then if the Terminator has an idea about how the world should work, then we can't do anything about that machine. They can the artificial intelligence can manufacture as many Terminators as it wants. It's got control of the factories and all this Hollywood stuff, okay? You can still find people who talk like that. That is not the problem. None of that will ever happen. That will never happen. But I can tell you, never. That will never happen. But I can tell you exactly what will happen. This is how it works. Machine intelligence, artificial intelligence, already is suspiciously as good as people for many tasks. Before I fired up this camera, I was looking at a video about AI girlfriends. And it would be girlfriends, not boyfriends. Because women want different things from men than men want from women. So AI girlfriends works. It's a thing. And people are calling it an epidemic, that it's going to destroy relationships. Real women are complaining that men are all wrapped up in their AI girlfriends and their video games, and they don't have to pay any attention to real women anymore. There is the risk of men and women not finding each other. Therefore, there's a risk of, how else to say it, reproductive failure. But it's worse than that. I mean, that's what's happening right now. But it's worse than that. There are very few jobs in the technology space that artificial intelligence cannot do better than a human. In the same way that there's very few calculations that a hand pocket calculator cannot do better than a human. A pocket calculator can do math, just arithmetic, right? Division, multiplication, adding. A pocket calculator, even your cell phone, right? Your cell phone has a little calculator in it. Your phone, which you use to call people, okay, and talk to them about whatever your day. This has a calculator in it that can do math better than any human alive ever could. It's even got enough processing power to quantum physics. There's a lot going on here, and everyone has one of these in their pocket. Artificial intelligence is like that. Machine intelligence is as to human mental abilities as a pocket calculator is to human ability to do arithmetic. Everybody has a pocket calculator or the calculator on your phone, right? Everybody has a pocket calculator. Everybody has a phone. And this eclipses us for doing arithmetic. I can't remember. 100 years ago was the last time I sat down and did math with a piece of paper and a pencil. I just don't do it. When I'm doing construction work, I used to have one here on the table. I have a construction calculator that does everything that you need to do for construction work. It's amazing. It does square areas and square footage and the whole thing. And it does math in inches. I can do math in inches. I can't do math in inches in my head. I always get it off by 1 inch or half an inch or something. It does math in inches, meaning you can add 1 7/8 inches to 13 1/8 inch. I can do that in my head, but yeah, even if you can do that one in your head, you still screw it up. But this math calculator can do those exact kinds of numbers with fractional inches and never get it wrong. Just never get it wrong. Never. And that's a calculator. Artificial intelligence is to our cognition as that calculator is to my ability to do math in my head. AI can do anything we can do. The problem is this, that it will replace people in the workplace where that person is doing knowledge work. Who is doing knowledge work? And AI will replace these people. It can do that now. And even if it makes mistakes, for a lot of applications, the mistakes are still worth it. All right? Simple as that. Who is doing knowledge work? Lawyers, teachers, doctors. Not nurses necessarily, but definitely doctors. Think about what our doctor does, right? Management at all levels of a corporation, including the CEO, including the board of a corporation. They're managing information. It's a long list, and these jobs are the higher paying jobs in most communities. Will AI be able to replace plumbers? Let's just say no. Let's just say no. Will AI replace electricians? Let's just say no. Because a plumber, what are they doing? They're fitting pipes. They're fixing broken things. They're part of residential construction. What's an electrician doing? They're pulling wire, testing things, looking for shorts in the wire. These are all physical things that are going to be hard for an artificial intelligence to do, even with a robot. It'll be easier and cheaper, and frankly, just more efficient for a human to do it. But how many plumbers do you know? One? How many electricians, professional electricians, do you know? Maybe one? Of all your friends and all the people you know, and how many times have you worked with a plumber and electrician? Almost never, right? Generally, things just work. So how many plumbers and electricians do we need in the world? How many are there? And how many more will there be? So so maybe those people's jobs are safe enough against being replaced by a artificial intelligence, but how many people like that are there? Almost none. If you're at a construction site, there'll be a contractor doing the electrical systems on these houses, but the contractor, the contractor doing the electrical will have a team of 4 people going house to house, pulling wire and putting in outlets and testing things and putting in load centers and, testing the load centers and hooking up the supply drops and all this kind of stuff. There'd be 4 or 5 people, maybe 10 people on a large construction project where there's apartments or all these houses or something like that. So long as we're expanding housing, then you have the need for these construction companies with a team of 10 people. What percentage of the population is that? What percentage of the economy, the GDP, the economic output of the country is that? It's nothing. It's zero. It doesn't even count. And you'll never meet these people. So those jobs are safe. Everybody else's job is up in the air. And will capitalism replace workers who need, time to be with family and holidays and vacation days and have to have health insurance and payments into their retirement account for all the days they work and blah, blah, blah. Why have all that going on when you can just pay a subscription for a artificial intelligence to do the same work that this person was doing? And maybe in this team of people, you could have 8 departments in your company and replace every single department with one AI that simply wears 8 different hats, right? The manager making product A goes to the AI and gets some designs and gets some workflow and gets some supply chain dynamics, and another manager's making product B in the same company goes to the same AI with the same questions, but they're 2 different products. There's earbuds and there's iPhones and there's iPads and but it's all the same AI. So you replace hundreds, thousands of positions with one AI that simply multitasks. One subscription, and maybe you're paying $100,000 a month per subscription to use that artificial intelligence from where? Google, OpenAI, right? DeepMind. But you're replacing dozens, if not hundreds, of positions of people, any one of which was making $100,000. So you take your footprint for salaries and you crunch it down to 1/100th. And if you're getting the same throughput and the same performance from an AI that you can from those hundreds of people, why not? And if it makes a mistake once in a while and it puts out garbage, then you just come back and you ask it the same question a little differently and maybe get a different answer. And how long does it take to do that? 30 seconds. Oh, this is garbage. Wait, I think I told the wrong thing. Okay, let me change my prompt. Edit, and ask again. 30 seconds. And you get your answer. Oh, this product doesn't need muffler bearings. Why is it telling me it needs muffler bearings? That shouldn't be in the supply chain. Muffler bearings? You got to be kidding me. And so you ask it the question slightly differently. Pretty soon you have a different list of things. And if you're familiar with the product, you're familiar with the industry, then you'll glance at the list and say, yeah, that looks about right. And it recommends these providers and it recommends these timelines and this other thing. And we can have our product in 3 weeks. And meanwhile, my AI can communicate with the AI at all of these supply chains, and pretty soon all the supplies are coming in, and the whole thing took 1/10 of the time, or maybe even 1/100th of the time, and now I have a product to sell. And I saved, I got rid of 100 employees and paid for one AI, and still saved money on that. Plus, the products came quicker, with less friction. And fewer emails and less time. And from concept to delivery of prototypes, it might have been 3 weeks. If you're Apple computer, from conception to delivery of prototypes might be 3 years, not 3 weeks. Probably not 3 years anymore. It used to be, of course. Now because of email and workflow and all this kind of stuff, it's probably down to 6 months. 9 months for a product to go from conception to prototype. And then it's another 6 months to go from prototype to production, maybe even longer than that. Well, all that gets compressed down to almost nothing. An afternoon's work, and you could have a new product and prototype. An afternoon's work, maybe there's a designer, maybe you have to bring the board in to look at the product as the prototype, and 6 weeks later, they show up in a box, and you can take them out and start playing around with them and say, yeah, this is what we want. No. It's like 3D printing everything. Of course, things will be 3D printed, and there'll be no friction of any kind. Might even be 3D printed on the premises. You could have your prototype in 6 hours. No joke, people. No joke. So what happens now if those people get laid off? What happens now? Well, they're not participating in capitalism anymore. Remember, the topic of this video is so many ways to fail. Everything I was just talking about is kind of the good news. If you're a CEO or upper management, senior VP, and you're thinking, I can get rid of employees, shorten the turnaround time from conception to prototype, shorten supply chains, reduce cost. If I can do all that, why wouldn't I do that? Of course, that's what you're going to do. That's what's happening all over the world right now. Companies are laying off employees. They're being kind of careful about it because this AI thing is still a little bit out there, but that's what they're doing. There's a real bloodbath going on in tech, ironically enough. But it will happen to teachers, and it will happen to doctors, and it will happen to lawyers, and especially lawyer assistants, right? People who are kind of down on the ladder a little bit and needed supervision anyway. So you fire that person, and for 1/100th of the cost, you hire an artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence needs supervision, but you were supervising somebody anyway, so now they're costing you 1/10 as much, or 1/100th as much. So net of net, it's not a bad deal. But now these people are unemployed. So what do they do? How do they participate in capitalism, consumerism, when they have no income? Well, they'll get another job. No, they won't. These are white-collar workers. They're working in industries like finances, right? Maybe they were loan adjusters or whatever. Well, they've been replaced by AI. Their skill set is in loan adjustment. But guess what? All the major financial institutions have now used AI. In fact, probably the same one, right? To replace their loan adjusters and their lower level staff. So when you get fired from company A and you go and hit the bricks and you're looking for another job at maybe company B and C and D, their story is, oh yeah, we just laid off most of our adjusters, most of our entry level people. We just laid off most of our staff because we're using artificial intelligence. Your whole industry has now been outsourced to AI. And so you abandon that industry. You abandon it. And what are you going to do now? All right, you're 27 years old, 35 years old, 45 years old, right? Where does it stop? You're 45 years old. You've already got your family. You've got your house. Your mortgage is maybe, a few years paid off. You got another 20 years to pay it off. And now you have no job. And worse than that, you have no industry. Your entire industry has been converted to AI. And so what do? Boy, you could retrain to operate artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence doesn't need any humans. This isn't like driving a tractor or a truck, okay? You don't drive AI. It replaces you. You don't train AI. You don't train your replacement in this case. They just let you go. Because the AI just comes ready to roll. It's an artificial intelligence, people. It's an artificial intelligence. It's intelligent. It's not faking it. You can talk to it. You can tell it, well, welcome to company A. And these are the tasks we're going to be doing. And here's a PDF file full of regulations for our industry. And here's another PDF file full of our product line and our strategic outlook. And literally, you're uploading PDFs to this thing, right? And it reads them. And it takes it 30 seconds to read each one. Completely, all the way through to the footnotes, accurately read every single word and understood it. You think I'm joking? I am not joking, okay? That's how this shit works. That's why people are so excited about it. And you upload your corporate goals and strategies, and you upload something else, and in an hour, It's trained. That's it. That's the training. If you don't understand that, you don't understand this shit, okay? And stop pretending that you understand how this shit works. Because if you don't get that part, that you can train AI in an hour to your business, then you don't understand fuck all, okay? And then they're ready to go. That company's ready to go. That's my wife's phone. And those employees are out of work and they're out of their industry. And then this spreads throughout the population of white-collar workers. And as different companies roll this out, others are going to notice, and they're going to roll it out. And then whole other industries will notice. Maybe it'll happen first in the financial industry, but then maybe logistics industries start figuring it out. And then they're thinking, hey, hold on, we have truck drivers and physical trucks. What if we start delivering things differently? What if we have self-driving trucks and we get rid of the truck driver? Have the AI drive the truck. Oh, that's not going to work. They'll never allow that. Oh, yes, they will. Absolutely, they will. They will figure that shit out as fast as they have to figure it out. No truck drivers. And look what happens when you lose these meat bag employees, right? You don't have any problems with illness. You don't have any problems with mental breakdown. You don't have any problems with kids need a parent at home. You don't have any problems with the weather. You know, if employees can't make it to work because of the weather, AI doesn't care. It's on site. It never leaves. It's there 24/7. It's crunching away 24/7. It's probably in the cloud, actually. It's not on the site. I mean, it could be on the site, but it's probably not. It's probably on the cloud, and all it needs is internet connection, and it's available 24/7. Doesn't matter what the weather is. There could be a pandemic. There could be a plague. It could have 50% mortality in the human population. The AI wouldn't give a fuck, okay? Wouldn't give a fuck about any of this. There's no way they don't do this. There is no chance in hell they don't do this. You just have to be clear-minded about this, people. This is coming. This is here. It's as bad as global heating. Global heating is physics. Global heating isn't going anywhere. There is no stopping it. It is here. It is staying. It's going to get worse. It never gets better. And whatever the harm is from global heating, we're going to deal with it. We're going to take the hit. And if the hit is we have to stop burning fossil fuels, then we're going to take the hit. It's as simple as that, people, because global heating is physics. It's fucking physics, for fuck's sake. It doesn't go away. It doesn't care what you think about it. It's here. It's going to do whatever it's going to do, and it's going to be ugly. The same applies to AI. As if it was physics, because the dynamics of destroying the employee base at these companies is so compelling. It is so compelling to the upper management and the shareholders. It is so important to get rid of the employee base. It is so critical to profits. It is so critical to a product turnaround. It is so critical to management and logistics. It is so critical to get rid of these meat bags. They will absolutely 100% do that. It may as well be physics. It may as well be gravity. This shit is going down. It's going down. And what happens when these people, and we could be talking about 50, 90% of the current workforce. I mean, the only people who end up having like a job are plumbers and electricians. And I'll get to those guys in a second. They also have a problem. And it's not the problem you think. When 90% of the employee base is unemployed, then watch what happens to capitalism through consumerism. They have no money. They have no future. They have no confidence in any move they can make, any member of their family, their own children. They have no confidence in anybody's future. Watch what happens. They stop having children. That's it. I'm not going to bear a child into this environment where there's no future. They stop going to college. I'm not going to pay money to get a fucking degree to then be unemployed as soon as I get out of college. Basically, I'm living on my college tuition, my college grant as if it was a salary. And I'm not going to do that. they stop consuming. They have no money, or they have no future, or they have debt, or they're just not confident that this is going to work. So they stop buying. As soon as they're out of a job, they stop driving. And there's no vacationing. There's no traveling. There's no tourism. There's nothing. These people have no money. And probably they're lining up at food banks, trying to get their free can of beans. They're not going to be interested in the fossil fuel-based economy. They can't participate. They can't afford the gasoline. They can't afford the car. They can't afford the car payments. They're walking, bitch. And where can they walk? Around the neighborhood, down to the park. Man, maybe they have a bicycle and they can go to the food line and come back with 2 bags of groceries. That's their life at this point. And that could be 50% of the population. That could be 90% of the population. And no, there is no retraining these people to drive AI as if it were a truck. It drives itself. It drives itself. It doesn't need us. Electricians and plumbers. What about them? Well, they've got it made in the shade, right? They all got jobs. Well, yeah, but if people stop buying homes and people stop living in homes and people stop repairing their homes and they don't buy appliances to be installed and they don't have dwellings. I mean, they've been kicked out into the curb, right? They're not living in their home anymore. No one's living there. Who's living there? Nobody's living there. They sent the keys to the bank and now the place is empty and boarded up and then it caught on fire and it burned down. There's no work for the electrician or the plumber. And are they building houses and high rises, apartment complexes? No, they're not doing any of that. For who? 90% of the human population is now out of a job. And they were the most highly paid people, right? Who is it that's buying the homes? Who is it that's calling in the electrician to fix the outlet, right? It's the teacher, it's the lawyer, it's the accountant, it's the tax guy, it's the college professor. It's all these people that had all these high-paying jobs, and they're not calling anybody because they don't have a job. Their job is gone. And maybe they have a pension, and maybe they can, pull out of their IRA account and pay themselves a small salary to continue to live. And maybe they continue to live in their home because they have enough money to pay their mortgage, so they're not kicked out right away. And maybe they have enough money from their retirement account to pay utilities. But that's a very marginal life. They're not doing anything extravagant. They're not buying anything new. They're not buying clothes. They're not eating out. They're not doing anything. And as soon as they stop eating out, what happens to the restaurant trade? They're gone. You thought they had some job security, right? No one can make a meal. Robots can't make hamburgers. Well, they can, of course, but they can't make a really nice meal for somebody. Well, if no one's going to the restaurant because everyone's unemployed or nearly so, then the restaurant disappears. They get boarded up. All those people are out of a job. And pretty soon, even the cooks in the back kitchen and the electrician and the plumber and the truck driver and all these people that thought that they had it made, because consumerism has collapsed. Because the economy based on 100% participation in the labor force, made enabled by 100% availability of fossil fuels in an environment that was 100% compatible with human activities, no global heating. Because all that collapsed. They're done. And now look what happens to capitalism. Consumerism absolutely collapses. Consumerism, the restaurants, the plumbers, the home builders, the car manufacturing, all of it collapses. Now, if you're a Lamborghini and you make 200 of a particular kind of car a year, yeah, there's going to be 200 billionaires who buy your car. You can probably charge them anything you want, and they won't even blink. They won't even notice what the cost is. So Lamborghini, I don't even know the brands, right? People, expensive suits, expensive shoes, expensive handbags, expensive jewelry and watches and expensive phones, expensive computers, expensive homes on expensive real estate. Those people are probably going to be fine. They've got all the money in the world. And if you've got quality beachfront property someplace and you want a quality, 20-room mansion on your quality, you can probably find a contractor who can pull together a team to build you your mansion. And if that's the only home they built that year is one mansion a year, then they all got paid. And they're probably okay for the rest of the year because they built a mansion this year. So the whole consumer economy can just completely implode. And the wealthy elites continue to do fine. They won't even notice. They won't even notice that all the work they did building AI and all the work they did rolling it out to all the other industries, they won't even notice that they've destroyed the consumer economy. Now, they may notice that they can't get an iPhone at the Apple Store because there is no Apple Store. Because who keeps the Apple Store open? You and me. All right? So they won't go, but they didn't do that anyway. I mean, you think that Jeff Bezos goes to the Apple Store to buy an iPhone? Are you kidding me? Of course not. He sends his minion to the Apple Store to pick up an iPhone. If he doesn't get it delivered directly to his house by Apple Computer itself, okay? It's no longer called Apple Computer. It's called Apple. Maybe he gets the direct package from Apple itself. And that's how he gets his iPhone, directly from Apple. And probably for free, right? They just give it to him. Oh, Jeff. Oh, yeah. Jeff, you're that Jeff Bezos? Oh, here, free phone for you. Enjoy. This is our best model. Free phone for you. He doesn't have to even pay for it because he's Jeff Bezos. He's got all the money. They don't want his money. Now, they would want his money if there's no one going to the Apple Store. And Jeff Bezos would probably have to pay $100,000 for an iPhone. Again, do you think he cares? No, he doesn't. He just wants the functionality. So he'll pay $100,000 for an iPhone. And if Apple, and this was in one of the videos I was watching this morning, if Apple only sells to the elites, which is like 1% of the current population, but they sell their product for 100 times more than they currently sell it for, they come out net of net just the same as they were. They have fewer customers, but they're selling more expensive products. It's as if, there's only 1 million, there's only 10,000 people who will buy a particular Lamborghini from the Lamborghini company, but they're paying $1 million for it. So they don't have to sell a low-end Lamborghini to you and me. They just have to sell 100 of their high-end line, which is manufactured with love and dedication by hand by a bunch of craftsmen in Italy, right? Every piece hand-shaped and hand-molded and hand-bolted and lovingly constructed like they used to make cars in the year 1900, right? Everything was a one-off. Everything was carefully crafted by old men with woodworking tools and that you go back to that. But they charge $1 million for them, or probably $100 million. So the company just does just fine. And they don't need to sell 1 million cars. They don't need to sell 100,000 cars. They don't need to sell 1,000 cars. They can sell 100 of their carefully handcrafted cars to the 100 people who can afford them. And they're done. Will there be a Ford Motor Company? Will there be a Toyota? I don't know. Can they figure that model out? Maybe Lamborghini and Ferrari and Porsche and a couple of others, maybe they just corner the market on luxury vehicles, and that's it. That's it. You're driving one of maybe 10 brands of cars, and it costs you $10 million every time you want a new one, and that's their business model. They don't sell anything to the consumer. There is no consumer market. There's no low-end anything. Everything is high-end, like it was, back in the day. Only available to the elites. They don't need us. So will they roll out AI and destroy the consumer economy and maybe even large parts of capitalism? They don't need us. There's your answer right there. The high-end manufacturers, the high-end providers, the high-end services, the high-end, the Rolex, the deluxe everything, they don't need us. And these are the elites that determine everything that happens in the world. And they don't need us. That Chinese company in China or Taiwan that made a cheap watch that looked as good as a Rolex, worked just as well, made a cheap watch that sold for $20 to the consumer, right? They don't need to exist. No one cares if they come or go. They were making a $20 watch. Worked the same as a Rolex. No one wants the cheap Rolex knockoff for $20. And that company goes away. And their employees no longer have a job. And there's no consumer market for that product because no one has a job. And then the teachers and the lawyers and the financial analysts who used to go out and buy that $20 watch on Temu, well, they're out of job. They're not spending $20 on a watch. They're going to try to find a watch at the Goodwill or the donations place. They're going to find a watch on the street. Their next handbag comes out of a dumpster. Their next pair of shoes sitting in the bushes. That's how they're going to be living their lives, because they haven't had a job for 6 months or 6 years. And there is no consumer economy. And if you want to buy a new car, you have to buy a Lamborghini. And if you're going to buy a Lamborghini, you have to pay $100 million for it. And if you need a car, then you'll do that because you're a billionaire or you're a multimillionaire. And paying $1 million for a car is no big stretch. They don't need us. They don't need to sell us $20 watches. And they don't need to sell us $20,000 vehicles. They don't need us. Will they roll out AI? Absolutely. Will they destroy jobs? Without question. Will they implode the consumer economy as a result and throw everybody out on the streets, living under a bridge, wearing used shoes that they found in the dumpster? Without hesitation. They don't need us. But you see, Cougar, now there's a problem. Because, well, remember, right, back in 1798, when the French people got tired of the monarchy, they got tired of being abused and, let them eat cake and all the other things that didn't happen. What did? They rose up. They rose up and they went out against the elites and the court and the king, and they was the Jacobite, maybe that was Scotland. Cut their heads off. Let them eat cake. Cut your head off. Okay, so there's always that, right? There's always that. But remember, these people know that's coming. They know what they're doing. They know what's going on. You think they can't figure that part out? You think they can't handle that? You think they can't find nations that are going to be really, really friendly to having the elites, like Luxembourg, Switzerland, right? Austria, maybe? The UK? London? Just that part of the UK? You think they can't figure that out? You think they can't build walls? You think they can't build barbed wire fences? You think they can't deploy their private militaries and armies? Look what Donald Trump is doing in this country. He's turning on his MAGA-ites, right? He's destroying farmers. He's destroying all these industrial workers. He's destroying trade, wars, destroying everything. The farmers that grew the soybeans are now going bankrupt because they can't sell them to China because China won't buy them. He's destroying these people left, right, and center. They got him elected. Fine. He's elected now. I don't need you. Thanks. Thanks for the second term. Chump. Don't need you. Just don't need you. And so what's going to stop you from just destroying the U.S. middle class? Just destroying them completely. Nothing will stop you from doing that. And, of course, MAGA, they've got all the guns, and they've got all the bullets, and they've got all the anxiety, and they've got all the grievance. So he knows just who to go after. And there's every indication that he doesn't give a shit. And that's how it's going to be in the world. When they roll out the AI and people lose their jobs, they'll say, yeah, that's free market economics, baby. Read 'em and weep. So the title of this video is So Many Ways to Fail. And the question that led up to this was, so which is going to get us first? Global heating or artificial intelligence? There is an interesting scenario here. Let's see if I can do this right. And let's see if you can follow along. I hope I do this correctly, because I think this is the scenario. There is no stopping climate change except that we stop burning fossil fuels. Think what you like. That's the answer. The elites do not want to lose this planet. Elon Musk is working double time to rapture his fat ass to Mars. All right, he wants off this rock. Okay, well, on the other hand, the threat to the elites goes down a lot if there's fewer people on this planet. Follow along here. Stay with me. They don't have to actually go after the population. The population will do the work for them. They deploy artificial intelligence. It does everything they want. They deploy the robotic workforce, army, what technical team, whatever you want to call it. They backed by the same AI. That does all the work they need, including taking care of them when they're old and gray-haired and have to wear a nappy, right? The robots, which will look exactly like people and act exactly like people. Trust me on this. Robots will do everything. They don't have to have any of us nearby as they live their lives. They may or may not even reproduce. Elon is trying to fix that. When AI has replaced most of the workforce, and that implodes the consumer economy, then that renders the rest of the workforce non-viable. The baristas serving coffee, the restaurant workers, the electricians, the plumbers, the home constructor, the truck drivers, these people who were integral into the logistics and support of the consumer economy, they also drop out of the picture. So you destroy the consumer economy, you destroy the logistics support for the consumer economy, including all the rest of it. And pretty soon, these people, 99% of your population now, has no future. Not inside capitalism. They don't have money. They can't trade money for goods and services. They don't have land. They're not farming. They don't know how to farm. They don't have access to water because they're living in a city now. They're not living on the river, and they're not living on the near the sea in a port of call. They don't have any of these things working for them. Maybe they're living in Alaska, right? And there's no ice, and the waves are coming ashore and destroying their homes. All the terrible things that can happen. 99% of the human population cannot participate in what's left of the economy. Therefore, since they cannot participate, and since the economy is 100% driven by fossil fuels and technology, and they cannot access that, then they cannot access food, clothing, shelter, water, medicine, education, communications, none of it. I wrote the book. See links in the description. They can't participate. How to say this? They can't participate, so they die. When they die, they stop burning fossil fuels. See what I just did there? When they're dead, or when they're massively unemployed, and they're just subsisting, the last pair of shoes came out of a landfill, right? They're not burning fossil fuels. The global heating problem is not solved, but it doesn't get any worse than it is from that moment forward. Who wins? The elites, who like this planet just the way it is, and who, by the way, we're finding out that it's kind of hard to get to Mars, all right? So they're okay with things the way they are. If most of the planet becomes uninhabitable, that's okay, because they can still find a spot over here and over there where they can inhabit. And there's maybe 8 million of the elites who currently run the show, right? And they can kind of currently determine what's going to happen to whom and when and how and why. And they're left over. And full circle. I've been saying on this channel, and I say in the book, that the likely scenario is that when this civilization collapses, and I've just outlined 2 ways it can happen: global heating and or AI rollout on a large scale. When this civilization collapses and people don't have money and they can't drive and they can't fly and they can't get involved in buying and selling of goods and they have no money and they have no job, when that happens, 999 people out of 1,000 will perish. as if they never existed. They will simply vanish. There won't be civil wars. There won't be riots. There might be a warfare between different groups of people who are on the way down as they're trying to scramble around for probably the last of the bullets, right? Because that's the thing that's keeping them alive at that point. They're scrambling around trying to get the last of the bullets. And then they're gone. Only 1 in 1,000 will survive this. Now, 1 in 1,000 is 8 million people from the current population. There's 8,000 million people. 1 in 1,000 is 8 million people. 8 million people. 8 million people living lives of luxury. All of them driving Lamborghinis. Not that they have anywhere to go, but all of them have private jets for the distances they need to travel. All of them have private farms. All of them have all the robots they need to work the farms and change their nappy. They have everything luxurious. They live like the Jetsons. They live like far better than kings ever lived. They live better than kings ever yearned to live. 8 million people can burn all the fossil fuels they want for all of time, doing all the things they want to do with fossil fuels. Natural gas, crude oil, and coal. They can burn all they want because there's only 8 million of them. There's 8 million of them. And they can all drive Lamborghinis getting 5 miles to the gallon. It doesn't even matter. Because the amount of harm they can do to the environment is minuscule compared to what 8,000 million people were doing when they were trying to do those things. 8 million people can do anything they want. It'd be just fine. And if they're paying $10 million for a car, that's fine. They just order it ahead of time and 6 months later it shows up. Handcrafted. For them. They don't care. And what are they doing with the Earth at that point? I don't know. It's their planet. This whole idea that the meek shall inherit the earth, that whole thing, that whole paradigm, give me a break. So the question was, which outdoes us first? Global heating or AI? The scenario is, I think, that they roll out the AI, they destroy the consumer economy, they destroy most of the human population. 1 in 1,000 people survives. Those are the elites. They do whatever they want. Global heating is stopped because they can't really affect the earth. 8 million people can't really do it. And they get the best of both worlds. They get artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, luxury goods produced by hand for them, but they can burn all the fossil fuels they want to on a planet with 8 million people. So which got us first? It's hard to say. I think the reason to roll out the artificial intelligence and destroy the consumer economy and destroy capitalism as we know it, the reason to do that is to stop global heating. Because that kills everybody. Because it's physics. The rest of it, they think they can control. They think they control the AI. They think they can control the planned demolition of consumerism and capitalism. They think they can get out of the way of it. They think all this is in their wheelhouse. And Elon Musk is going to be on Mars. So they got it all figured out, okay? They have it all figured out, and they're going to have robots, and the robots are going to do the crops, and the robots are going to patrol the perimeter, right? With guns and bullets and lasers and everything else. And the rest of us are just going to become whatever we become. In my book, it was 100 days. Links in the description. In my book, have I shown you the cover? My book. Why is the camera so blurry? My book. In the book, that's exactly what happens. There is a small portion of the community of the city that's left over. They create a village. They put walls around their village. They really don't have any visibility into what's going on outside their village. They just focus inward on their internal processes of trying to grow food and have water and protect their children and their elders. And after 100 days, they kind of look around and say, where'd everybody go? So, spoilers. That's part of the 8 million people. Some people, will kind of figure it out. You don't have to be the elite to survive if you can create a village where everyone works together, has their shared collective best interests in mind, and, no politics, no economics, no real organized religion, none of this imaginary bullshit, unicorn shit, okay? They just stick to business, and that's crops and access to water and surviving the elements, and hopefully global heating doesn't come along and kill them. And it might not, because the consumer economy imploded. And whether that was because of the heat or because of an AI rollout, it kind of doesn't matter. The AI rollout does have the advantage of putting a lid on how much harm can come from global heating, because you destroy the consumer economy, you destroy capitalism, and you get rid of 999 people out of 1,000. It's a solution. You and I don't have to like it, but it works. And it's in their wheelhouse. They've already got the AI. They're working on the robots. They're working on getting us all out of the consumer economy. We're not going to be able to burn fossil fuels, and they don't really care. And they don't mind if their businesses go out of business selling iPhones or whatever. They don't care, because we're the problem for them. And when we're gone, their problem goes with us. Because 8 million people, left over of 8,000 million, 8 million people can do whatever they want on this planet for as long as they want to do it. So that's what? That's the hour-and-a-half answer to the simple question. This is how this works, people. This is how it works. That's the hour-and-a-half answer to the question. So which is it going to get us first, global heating or AI rollout? I got a lot of questions in the chat here. I'm sorry. I was glancing at you guys, but unfortunately I didn't have my glasses on, and I was on a roll. What have we got going here? The example of the early days of handcrafted cars is superb. Yeah. Everything's going to be handcrafted. Suits, shoes. I mean, remember, there was a time when everything was made by hand. Everything. Now, it was true that only the king or the emperor or the merchants, the wealthy merchants, could afford the really nice things made by hand. But there was a shoemaker somewhere who was the shoemaker to the king. Right? He was a shoemaker to the king. And he made probably 2 or 3 pairs of shoes a week for the king and the court. He was good. Right? He did great. And there was a tailor to the king and the queen. Oh, she had her own. The queen had her own tailor, own seamstress, who would make the dresses and coif the hairdressers and hats and, walking canes and all of it made by hand, every single piece of it. And you think they won't just go back to that again? And the big sell will be everything is custom made for you, by hand, by a plebe who answers to you, your own tailor, your own shoemaker, your own hat maker. This person belongs to you. And they only work for you. Do you think the elites won't jump all over that? Do you think the elites aren't going to absolutely have an orgasm when everything is made by hand for them? Do you think that isn't attractive? Do you think that Jeff Bezos buys his shoes and hats and everything else off of Amazon? Of course not. He gets his shoes from some Italian shoemaker, and he flies over there in his private fucking jet, and he walks into the shop and says, "Hi, I'm back. I need a new pair of shoes. I like those ones you made for me last time. Can you make another pair for maybe?" Absolutely. He drops everything. He just gets right to work on that, right? You think that they're not going to continue doing that? Of course they're going to continue doing that. And the way it worked with the king was, if the king needed food to feed his cobbler, he went down to the village and took the food from the villagers and brought it up to the castle and fed his retinue. He fed his staff. That's how he did it. And if in the future the peasants are actually just robots, they're not even going to revolt. They're not even going to care. The elites not needing other humans is a point other humans need to come to terms with. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we're not going to have that discussion, are we? Do you think we're going to have that discussion? I don't think so. That the elites don't need us? Do you think that what they're really wanting is a world made by hand? Do you think we're ever going to have that discussion? No, I don't think so. What do the elites need? And they are absolutely aware of this. The elites need planet Earth. It must be habitable. It must have arable land somewhere of some kind. They can get to it. That's not the problem. If there's people living there, they can get rid of the people. That's not the problem. They need arable land in a temperate zone that's suitable for human occupation. They need this. They don't want to live on Mars, where one dome failure can kill the entire population, or one outbreak of a virus can kill the entire population. They want to be on Earth. They want to have their villa and their 100 acres, whatever it is, right? And they want their temperate climate, and they want their arable land, and they want access to clean water and clean air. Of course, it'll all be clean because there's no industries left, right? Everything's made by hand. You're not going to have any pollution of the water. You're not going to have any pollution of the air. We're not burning fossil fuels. Where's the pollution come from in the air? Where's the soot and the carbon monoxides and the carbon dioxides and the ozone? Where's all that come from? It comes from the exhaust pipes of cars, and it comes from factory smokestacks, and those are not going to happen because the consumer economy will have imploded. The freeways will be empty. There'll be, cars will be parked in the driveway or scrapped already, and there'll be, of course, a small industry of just collecting all the scrap metal and making it into useful products like robots, right? I'm sorry. And so, so that's their world. And do you think they don't know that? Do you think they're not thinking, where's this all headed? Where's this all headed about me? I'm a billionaire. I'm a trillionaire. Where am I going to be in all this? What I need is a habitable Earth. I need 100 acres of arable land. I need either slaves or robots. Not particularly. I don't really care either way. Slaves are a bit of a problem. I need robots. Okay, I need robots. I need enough automated manufacturing to provide me with robots and robotic parts. I need electricity, which I can get through either small-scale nuclear plants or solar and wind, or all three combined, right? I need access to technology, and I need 3D printing, and I need some sort of software or hardware industries that still makes computer chips, that still writes software, and maybe they don't even care anymore. Why pay $50,000 for an iPhone when there's no one you need to talk to? Jeff Bezos, he's on the phone all day long, right? Well, he's not running Amazon anymore. Amazon is a consumer supplier. Amazon, his company, Amazon.com, completely imploded along with everything else. But because he's a billionaire and a trillionaire and a quadrillionaire, he buys his 100 acres somewhere up in the northern tier of the United States, maybe part of Canada. He has his robots or his slaves or both. Maybe he starts with slaves and ends up with robots. I don't know how it's going to work out. These are details. I don't care. But anyway, he clears his land and he gets his crops planted and he has his water and he makes sure he has electricity. He doesn't need a phone anymore. He's not calling anybody to organize things or yell at his managers. He doesn't have any managers. He doesn't have a company. He has 100 acres and a bunch of robots. And a planet. He's got a planet. Planet Earth. Habitable, more or less. And, when the worst of the storms come, he'll probably be fine. If he built his mansion out of the right materials and the hurricanes come and they blow and they, knock some trees down, his robots are right back out the next day, fixing the fields, working the fields, whatever it is. He doesn't care. And what's the point? What was the point of his existence? To be the last man standing? Maybe. I don't know what these people are thinking. Do they want the planet to themselves? I don't know. What's their motivation? Well, their motivation right now is getting filthy rich. They have a OCD complex about money and wealth and power and influence. So they want all of that they can get. They're going to blow up the consumer economy. They're going to kill everybody, and then they're going to be by themselves. But the path dependency was it started out with greed, the desire for political influence, desire for growth, being the top dog, and then finally all these things, cascaded out into uninhabitable Earth. A bunch of people died, and they were left over, and they're perfectly happy with that. And then, if you've been following along, you may ask yourself, well, that's interesting. So we have a near extinction event. 999 people out of 1,000 die. That's extinction. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It still leaves 8 million people. Read my book. It still leaves 8 million people. That is not an extinction event. But you're getting close. I mean, there aren't 8 million elephants. There aren't 8 million tigers. There's not 8 million of anything our size. But there will be 8 million people. And they'll have technology, and they'll have robotics, and they'll have AI, and they'll have guns and military and the whole thing. They can do anything they want with the earth. They'll have bulldozers. They'll have diesel to run their bulldozer. They can conquer the planet all over again to suit themselves, right? But 8 million people is a fraction of the current population, so that's not good. Could you have an extinction event? Here's how you get an extinction event. Those 8 million people, by the time they have been selected out and they fall through the sieve, and they have their mansions and their robots and their AI and their 3D printers and their everything else, they're probably old. They're not reproducing. And what if they just individually don't understand their responsibility for avoiding extinction? What if they just individually, because of their ego, because obviously that's a problem, all they want is pleasure. And they don't want to be with people, and their wives are, same age as they are, 45, 50 years old, not having children, and they just want to have wine and meet with their friends once in a while and fly around in their private helicopters from one mansion to the other. It's like the French aristocracy. They only hang out with the aristocracy. And if the aristocracy are all old people, geriatric and rich, and they're the ones that inherit the earth, well, that's not too good. The last person on earth, the last living person on earth, maybe some mad king living in his mansion surrounded by robots, no humans left. They're all dead. They all got old. Or they had accidents, or they were eaten by lions, or whatever happened to the people. And the mad king, the last person on earth, is this mad king who is surrounded by robots, including, of course, sex robots and everything else. But they're robots, right? They're not humans. And then he dies. He doesn't even know he's the last one. He's surrounded by robots that look like people. He doesn't even know he's the last person in his own mansion. He dies. 0 people. And that's how AI destroys the species. What probability do I give to that? Coin toss odds. Coin toss odds. Sure, why not? 50%. 50% probability of that scenario I just outlined of happening. 50%. And maybe something happens, some weird thing happens that diverts that trajectory. But that trajectory I just described, which kills us first, global heating or AI, that scenario that I just outlined, there's nothing to stop that. There's nothing to stop that. There's no incentive for anyone to not let that happen. And there's every incentive for the people in control to make sure that that scenario is exactly what happens. They avoid global heating. They avoid civil war. They avoid losing power. They avoid sharing power. They avoid losing any lifestyle advantages because there's only 8 million of them and they can do whatever they want. Yeah, I'd say coin toss odds that happens. 50-50. So that's the complex answer to what sounded like a simple question. As usual, there's nothing simple about any of this. This is all complicated. It ends up in a very particular place with some predictability, but, it takes a while to understand how that happens. So I guess we'll see, because, we will. I'm 66, and I could easily live to be 80, right? So 14 years from now, oh yes, all this is played out. Oh, hell yeah, all of this is played out. 14 years from now, absolutely, we will see if this plays out or not. Coin toss odds that it does or it doesn't. That's all I got. Today's a day off for me, so I don't mind sitting here talking to you people. Thanks for coming, showing up. Thanks for being here. Like and subscribe. Watch my other videos. I come back on here once in a while when I'm not working on the roof or doing something else. And buy my book. Links in the description. As my wife says, buy me a coffee. Link in the description. Buy me a coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. Let's have a cup of coffee together. And my usual admonition. Don't screw this up, people. Don't die. All right? Fair enough. Don't die.